Miss Mitchell, I have just asked you to be brief. Would you please do so? I was quite clear when I felt the meeting should close. I can allow a couple of minutes leeway, but I'm not going to allow another 15, 20 minutes.
I won't be able to put the same questions I would want to the First
Well,
Minister.
could you please carry on instead of wasting time?
Transparency, openness and accountability is what we established at the very beginning is essential for any government to establish trust with the electorate. In responding to the fact that no one so far has taken any responsibility at all for the catastrophic fallout from the government's complaint handling that cost almost £1 million to the taxpayer. Your response is perhaps you've been too understanding to those who made mistakes. Now that includes very highly qualified individuals with gilt-edged pensions earning what the normal Scot would deem as eye-watering salaries, who under oath have had or developed collective amnesia, have managed to forget about texts and other correspondence, have had to come back to the committee repeatedly and correct their evidence. The independence of our civil service matters, but what appears to be here, either we've got the most incompetent civil servants under the sun, some of them at the head, and that's doing such an injustice to our excellent civil service here, and that's regrettable. Or after 13 years, the independence and the lines have been blurred. Is that a possibility? Does it concern you? If you don't mind, I'll leave your questions to the end, given the constraints your answers to the end the convener has put on me. We've also heard evidence, and this is definitely abuse of the ministerial code, from the former First Minister that there has been an abuse of power in leadership. And to substantiate the abuse of power allegations, your response has been, well, where is the evidence? Can you turn you to the official report and just exactly the problem with providing that evidence, which our committee has also experienced. And this is what Alex Salmond says. I be here before you under the explicit threat of prosecution if I reveal evidence for which the committee has asked. Not to fulfil my oath and tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth would be contempt. But the Crown Office says it might lead to prosecution. I put it to you, First Minister, anyone looking in isolation at this process would assume that this was an inquiry process put in place by some tin pot dictatorship. Furthermore, it's deeply damaging to the proud and well-respected system of justice in Scotland, and it leads it into disrepute and open ridicule. And it's taken by the decision of the Crown to establish that jigsaw identification is an absolute, which could possibly lead to a breach of Lady Dorian's order and a contempt of court. And this is underdeveloped. It's a concept that was rejected at Westminster in 1989 when they were drafting and implementation problems. So one thing to you now, First Minister, is you're saying what matters to you. Well, Alex Salmond laid out quite clearly what matters to him, and it should matter to everyone here, because what people are asking is if the former First Minister can find himself on the dock and in the kind of situation where he's always facing imprisonment because of what he alleges is a breach, an abuse of power, then he says, and I agree, the independent civil service matters, the independence of the Crown and officers acting in the public interest matters, acting in accordance with legal advice matters, concealing evidence from courts matters, the duty of candour of public authority matters, litigation at any cost but to assist the court in reaching the correct result and thereby improve standards in public administration matters. and above all, democratic accountability through Parliament matters. And what we found is the Parliament cannot and does not have the power to hold the Scottish Government to account. So collectively, these events and this inquiry has shone a line on what I think is a worrying deficit and a centralisation of power. And it matters when we've got a pandemic and police have got exceptional powers and you, First Minister, have got exceptional powers. And we're shortly to have an election. And if the SNP
could you come to a close, please, Ms Mitchell?
Were to be elected again, there would be no checks and balances on these powers.
Ms Mitchell, I'm going to stop you there.
Could you respond, please, First Minister?
Ms Mitchell, I'm going to stop you there because Ms Mitchell, I think some of your remarks have been inappropriate. And I think there's an awful lot in there that was your own rhetoric rather than questions.
It was in the official report.
Yes, I know, you read it out.
I'm telling the
Ms Mitchell, would you please let me as convener
Certainly.
say what I have to say? Thank you. I think some of the language you used was inappropriate, whether it was in the official report or not. I think your tone was somewhat inappropriate at times. I think it was difficult to see what questions were actually being asked. So I will ask the First Minister to respond to anything she picked up that she feels she is able to respond to.
Okay, firstly, who wins the Scottish election is a matter for the Scottish people, nobody else.